Signs of the Southland, Sunday, September 18th, 2022. Ooh boy, what a weekend. Huh. Lots of stuff to talk about, wouldn't you say, Mr. Purdy?
It was lively. I think of my waking hours, approximately 95% of them have been concerned with something athletic related, either professional or amateur, unless you don't want to call college football amateur football anymore.
Ooh, we're getting into spicy take territory. I assume Jake
Yeah.
has a particular take on that.
I was going to ask Jack if he thought his weekend was particularly tech lively. Ha ha ha.
Oh,
But
yeah. All
Boo!
bad
uh
jokes.
all
Bad
10 of us
jokes.
that'll get that joke. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I listened to a couple episodes in my day. For those who don't know, Jack used to host the Techniques podcast, Tech Lively. But we have him now. So good job on finding us. But in terms of the weekend, I think it was more a weekend of doom scrolling. I think is probably the right way to put it. Like, I mean, I demand the Twitter for the Tech Ole Miss game on Saturday, and that was just a
We'll
bad
get there.
excuse to be constantly on Twitter about this, that, and the other thing, including Iowa State's like bridge that they're all obsessed with now. Apparently, they're undefeated since building this bridge, so that really spoke to me. That was fun, but I would not have found it without all the doom scrolling. At
They're gonna
least
have to take the bridge down when they lose. That's just how that's gonna have to go now.
I
I'm
bet it
sure
costs
that'll
less
go
than
over
the one on
well.
North Side too.
Uh,
Get
speaking
your head out
of
of your hands,
bridges,
Akshay.
Speaking of bridges, I'm going to use that as a segue into our first news segment. Cross country was in Huntsville this weekend, I believe, for the North Alabama Invitational. I now have to look up results
Running Club was there
before
too,
Jake
actually.
tries to snub me and take away my segue because I am totally a good podcaster. Please, someone give me results. Okay, Jake, please go before I embarrass myself.
Yeah. So I actually learned at church this morning that the Run and Rec was up there too, which is Tech's club running. So that's interesting. I feel like every year I learned something new about cross country being that weird intersection between D1, D2, D3, unattached athletes. Track kind of runs this way too. But for there to be club athletes there too, I was like, well, I guess that makes sense. I mean, if against Barry, like might as well throw the that next slate of tech athletes in there too. In terms of actual results, which I'm sure everyone is at the edge of their seat for, Tech did place third at North Alabama. In terms of big names, Liz Galarza, John Higginbotham led the women and the men respectively. In terms of other schools that were there, Auburn, Eastern Kentucky, and Georgia. So notch that one on the old ledger in favor of Tech, which is always fun to see as well. Did you guys notice anything else? Any other comments? I tried to check the actual like line by line results, but I keep getting spam blocked, so I could not tell you much more than what I can glean via Twitter, ramblerdirect.com, and other sources.
I have the live results up. You will. So let me read off the top 10 in terms of schools, at least on the men's side. Alabama, South Alabama, Alabama, South Alabama, Alabama, Lamar, Cumberland, which lol, Auburn, Mississippi College, question mark, and then Georgia Tech. That is on the men's side. That Georgia Tech athlete is John Higginbotham, and he placed 24 minutes, 86 milliseconds, I think. And then on the women's side, Kentucky, Alabama, Kentucky, Georgia Tech, Eastern Kentucky, Auburn, Georgia Tech again, Southern Miss, Alabama, Samford, your fourth place on the women's side, Liz Galarza, 16:38.96 in the 5K, and then Helena Lindsay, 16:49.08 at seventh. So pretty good showing, dominated by Alabama's and their other constituent parts in the SEC. So Weird stuff for a running course. Didn't really expect to see that personally. Though I guess it is the North Alabama Showcase, so pick your
Yeah, I
poison.
mean, it's always interesting to kind of see how stuff like that shakes out. I feel like there's always a surprise or two in there. But in terms of I guess quality of opponent, there was quite a few big names there, and also kind of a long list of teams that are there. So third, not too bad.
Yeah, it's good.
One last note before we move on the live results page, the John Hunt Park and North Alabama Showcase mentioned that they have a GoFundMe as they recover from flood damage at their offices. So please feel free. We'll put the link to that in the show notes. Please feel free to donate to that as well, because flooding the last couple of months in some parts of the Southeast has been really, really tragic and terrible. Let's move on to club soccer, for which I think that is the only club sport that we have results for this week. Jake, tell me about the women's club soccer program at Tech.
Yeah, so club soccer off to well, they had a tremendous year last year. Great showing at the national level. Kind of following that up strong with the 2-0 win against School Out East, which really is the theme of a lot of the teams this weekend that we will be talking about and have already talked about. So great to see them, not just winning, but also pitching a shutout. They're again a team that's been really solid year over year for honestly as long as I can remember. So they seem to have not missed a beat since last year.
And then over to the men's side, por favor.
Yeah, men's side 4-0 blank slate win against Kennesaw. So again, they've been pretty strong too, and definitely great to see them taking care of business versus in-state schools. And it's something that I don't think I've really done a good job of like staying in tune with since I've graduated. But this is the soccer option for Georgia Tech. So if you're so inclined, go take a look at their schedules. They post those on Instagram. So that would be your chance.
For now, just wait until
For
the
now.
AD adopts
For now.
our plan to cap the connector and then put a soccer stadium on it. I'm telling you, it will happen at some point. Speaking of teams taking care of business versus in-state opponents, let's start on Saturday in Stegeman Coliseum in Athens, Georgia. Mr. Purdy, Georgia Tech volleyball, 3-0 sweep of yet another bad community college. Tell me more.
I thank goodness, because by the time we finished playing Ole Miss in football and me and you had left the United game, none of our teams had scored in any capacity whatsoever by the time this game had started. And so we were three. I counted a scoring here as winning the set. So yeah, we won 3-0, 25-19, 29, 25-17, 25-21. They played segments here. They played their basketball arena. They had a pretty good crowd from what I saw on TV. The hecklers were hilarious, of the ones that got caught over the boom mic or whatever mic they used to pump in sound. Bergman, Otene, and Bertolino all had over 10 kills. Bergman led again, of course, at 16. Bertolino 10, Otene 11 kills. D'Amico had 39 assists on. I think that was. I think only one kill she did not assist on for the entire match. So just right on up there. It was a quick thrashing, only an hour 29. One of Georgia's players got a yellow card, which I did not realize was a thing you could get in volleyball at the time. But that happened. So they got a little testy, and so they got carded. They didn't have to like lead. It's not like intramurals where if you get a card in soccer, you have to leave the field. They just got a card. It was a good day way to get off the schneid because we had lost to Arkansas. We were there. We were the second top 10 casualty for the Razorbacks. And their first win against the top, or this is the highest ranked win that program has had since 2007. So we really were a landmark win for that program, as they are now newly ranked for the first time in a while.
So
I gotta
before okay, go for it.
I was going to say, I got to jump in on the yellow card thing because there's one man in particular on our staff that is phenomenal at getting the refs so thorough a lesson that he gets yellow carded. at least a couple times a year, and that would be one Mr. Claudio. So keep an eye out for that, because usually if he's that worked up, they probably made the wrong call. But it's interesting to watch at least.
So back to the game in Athens for a sec. Given that Tech had lost its two previous games before that, were there any adjustments that you saw that led to success in that game in
Yeah,
Stegeman, or
yeah,
was
we
it more of a talent differential situation?
definitely both. Georgia was no Arkansas. They were no Ohio State. By any stretch of the means, they had a better record at the time technically. But I haven't checked their schedule to see if they played anyone of note. But no, there was definitely a talent gap there. And we were playing cleaner volleyball. Like we were just able to just rope together a lot more kills. It never felt like we really were getting pushed. One of the sets there was 10 lead changes, I think, so it was back and forth a lot. And I don't know if we've done a race plot for this match yet, but I think that first set we it was back and forth, got away at the end to win that one, and then second and third sets were not much of a challenge at all. So I think well in Arkansas they were good, they were getting better, they were riding a really good set, a couple wins. They had beaten Washington to start the year, so like they knew they were good just to get off the schneid. Um, so no, I think this was just a normal game. They thankfully flew straight from Arkansas to Athens, so they didn't have to do any extra travel like I probably would have thought they would have done. Um, and then they come back and they got two games here at home. It's coming up, so I, I a good team has to be able to get off to rebound from losses, and they did it very very well, and they did it in their normal fashion. So I am not in terms of if there's a panic meter, I'm not registering on the panic meter at all right now.
Fair. I do think it's interesting that they flew direct from Fayetteville to Athens, but hey,
Yeah,
when you're a top 10 team and you need to get from one end of the SEC to the other, I guess that's what you got to
yeah,
do.
yeah.
This was a weird situation. What was this, like Thursday night or Friday morning, where both of you were looking up flight records for this? And I was just like,
Yes,
this
we were.
is
We were.
look, there are
I was
other
like,
things that flight like I think volleyball flight tracking is a little much even for us.
I think so too. I just noticed their story. I was like, they're on a plane, but that does not look like that looks like a residential area right next to that landing strip. So clearly they were somewhere. Also, I don't really ever flown into big cities, so I could be mistaken for a normal
my
airport. But
the thing that
anyways,
threw me
go ahead.
the thing that threw me was there was a flight from Northwest Arkansas Regional XNA, big plane nerd guy me, to Atlanta right around the same time. I was like, oh, it has to be that. And then I'm just kind of like chilling with the radar on in the background, and it's like, oh, Fayetteville to Athens direct in a plane that looks like what they just posted on their Instagram story.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you
we'll
go.
go with that.
Yeah,
We're moving on. Other results around the country. Pitt beat Ohio State in straight sets earlier today, so that's something to file away for later. Pitt, I think, is still ranked at 12th. I don't think we've seen an updated coaches poll yet. Wisconsin sold
no,
out their arena, I think it was their basketball arena, for a game versus Florida. I think those are both ranked teams, so that's interesting to see. Also interesting to see a lot of really high level volleyball has made it onto ESPN networks, on like linear ESPN networks, on actual TV. Earlier this week, we had Kentucky play Louisville, I think at Louisville, which was pretty cool to see. And then earlier today, Nebraska versus Kentucky was on ESPN2. So ESPN, ESPN2, a lot of volleyball making it up on there. It's fun to see. I mean, it's a really good TV sport, and it's good to see it getting more exposure, don't you think?
it's growing in
Well,
popularity amongst the youths nowadays too. So it's in just terms of sports available to play. So getting it out there is important to carry on kids wanting to keep playing volleyball as well.
I mean, it's just a great product to watch too. Even if you're casual, every what did Coach Collier say on the show? Every action ends in a point. That's about as good of a selling point for me.
Yeah, they're scoring all the time. And I just will note the fact that the Wisconsin sold at the Kohl Center means we should be able to sell out uh McCamish when the time comes against Pitt next month. So tickets
Buy
are
your
only ten
tickets.
dollars.
Mhm.
That game is a
Mhm.
lot closer than you think it is, or that you
No,
might
it's
think
in
it
less
is.
than a month. Less than a month. We're talking 3
It's like
weeks out.
in 3 weeks, yeah. That is what, October 9th. That is the same weekend as homecoming, I believe. So get your tickets for that. I think the lower bowl is currently on sale right now.
Yeah, they're
I
gonna do the
don't
lower
know.
bowl and then do the upper bowl if they need to.
I wonder where
Yeah,
my seats are, or our seats, Akshay, because we both have season tickets. So go
it's
figure.
probably It's probably GA. I wouldn't.
Hmm.
I don't expect it to be anything other than GA. But we'll see. I mean, we haven't gotten any sort of update about that from GTAA. Speaking of updates, we do have from GTAA. The ACC slate begins this week for the volleyball team. Mr. Grant, do you want to talk about our competition coming up?
Yeah. So we do have really every team eventually at some point. So that's fun. But we're starting it off with home versus Wake Forest Friday the 23rd. That's an evening game in the ACC. It's worth noting that they do play 2 games in a weekend, in weekends that they're home. Usually that is a Friday nightcap and then a Sunday afternoon. So it'll be Wake Forest, like I said, Friday the 23rd, and then Virginia Tech Sunday the 25th. I don't want to put any carts before any horses, but neither of these teams are particularly uh, conference heavyweights, I think is a very nice way to put it. And I'm a nice guy, so I want to leave it there. But if you want to see Tech take care of business, I believe that there's still tickets on sale. I haven't seen anything indicating they are sold out. So go ahead and grab those. And yeah, should be a Friday night nightcap. Again, if you're in the area on Sunday, that usually is a nice draw for the make an afternoon in Midtown of it. Don't have to fight as much traffic type crowd too.
Just to provide some context, the almost the entire ACC has been really strong in non-con this year, at least records wise. I don't know about the strength of schedules here, but Wake Forest eight
So
and three, uh, and
let
then
me
Virginia
let,
Tech
let me
seven and
enlighten you a
four.
little bit. So the I think it was the second year that I was covering volleyball. I was like, wow, I'm going to do a pre ACC conference season preview, like, just write something up on the site. And I was like, wow, Boston College is like 12-1, like 13-0. They must be really good. And I'm pretty sure they went like 2-16 in the ACC. So I would not put a lot of, I wouldn't put too much undue weight on various ACC's non-con teams. The obvious caveats there are going to be, us with our ridiculous schedule, Pitt with their ridiculous schedule. Louisville has played quite a number of good teams, including being on like the mainline ESPN, like you mentioned, which is wild. But yeah, not everyone's slate is quite as aggressive as Texas, so it might not be something we can say is apples to apples there with respect to maybe that 8-3 and that 7-2.
Boston College 11 and 2 this season, by the way. Just saying. Maybe it's
I
BC's
mean,
year, Jake. You don't know that.
It's a new year. It's a new year. I haven't looked at every schedule to memorize it inside and out, but let's play 2 weeks in the ACC and then make our judgments on the strength of some of those schedules.
Since we restarted recording, the Falcons were down 2 scores, blocked a punt, scored a touchdown, got the 2-point conversion, and then got another turnover, and they got the ball on the Rams side of the field with 2.5 minutes to go, down 1 score.
Do you want to let me know what score the Falcons were down by before that entire sequence?
I kind of do, but really don't want to, so I don't have a panic attack while I start recalling things in my brain. But we were down. We were down 28-3.
More about football after this short break.
Once again, this is our intermission to tell you about Section 103. I'm in a Section 103 shirt again today. And part of the reason that I chose this particular one, the Welcome to the Thriller Dome shirt, is because I was at the game yesterday and I saw Josh Pastner on the sideline and it made me miss basketball. And I love basketball. I love the Thriller Dome. I am thrilled. Wow, I didn't mean to do that, but I am thrilled that volleyball is playing in McCamish in just a couple of weeks. But this is probably my favorite Tech shirt that I own. I love Buzz doing fun stuff. I love Buzz spinning a basketball on his finger. And my first Georgia Tech sports love will always be men's basketball. So that's just everything you could want in a comfy, correct gold shirt, very soft as well. So that is, at least in my opinion, the shirt of the week. Doesn't really have anything to do with maybe currently active sports, but we'll plug it. In terms of the usual, you can find them at section103.com, on Twitter at section103. Interact, choose the next shirt. Always lots of good stuff and lots of good tech content coming out of there. And as always, free shipping on orders over $70. That's section103.com. Great partners to us. Great tech folks as well. So really can't say enough about the great stuff that they've done. Just putting out really, really accessible, high quality stuff.
Welcome back to Scions of the Southland. Gentlemen, I come bearing bad news. Jeff Collins remains employed at the Georgia Institute of Technology as its head football coach. He and his team posted a shutout for his offense yesterday, losing 42-0 versus Ole Miss. Now, I don't want to talk about the game. The final score kind of says it all. It was putrid. I have a whole thing in the advanced stats review on that game and a bunch of other things. Jake, you were in the arena. Jack and I were not. Please explain to me your emotions as this was unfolding.
So I think a lot of people knew or had this sense of Ole Miss kind of being a bellwether game, right? You're going up against Clemson. They did Clemson things. You're going up against Western Carolina. They were Western Carolina. But Ole Miss was going to be like a prove-it game. And there's people that have been for the last, probably even starting as early as the Citadel loss, but I'll leave that to the annals of history to kind of determine in a couple of years. But, people have been in a broad spectrum of opinions, of feelings, but I think in general, a lot of people kind of had the Ole Miss game circled as, maybe we find out a thing about this team or about this program or just something from the Ole Miss game. And I think based on fans voting with their feet at certain points in the game, based on what I saw on Twitter, based on how people were interacting with us and with the site on Twitter during the game, I think it was pretty, and comments on the game thread and whatnot, I think it's pretty clear that it seems that everyone is kind of on the same page that things aren't working out. That being said, you said to talk about the atmosphere, and I will plug that. That is the most beautiful weather I have ever had for a Georgia Tech game. I think every Ole Miss fan I interacted with was either super nice or just kind of like, enjoying the city. The literal atmosphere was phenomenal. It was a blessing of a September day, and I was enjoying just being outside once I kind of got over the crushing disappointment of seeing something that I really care about be just not that good. And that's what they were yesterday, not that good.
Welcome to Atlanta Sports, Mr. Grant. Jack, I know you weren't there, but we met briefly at the United game to talk about this.
Yeah.
And I think at that point it was it 14-0? It was 21-0? It was something zero.
It was either 21 or 28 at the time.
See, meanwhile, Jack still saw me before the game at Tech when I had hope in my eyes and stuff like that. So probably a different vibe.
Jack, you watched, I think, 3/4 of this on a phone in the club level at Mercedes-Benz. What were your thoughts?
When I saw we had 1st and goal from the 6, I was delightfully surprised. I was like, all right, cool. We at least getting a drive put together. And then saw that we ran the ball for a couple of yards. I'm like, all right, that's fine. To see if we can not throw a pick here. And then proceeded to, what was on 2nd down? In the incompletion on 2nd down in the corner, basically trying to throw the Calvin Johnson fade, which we as Robert mentioned on our football preview pod, we just don't have wide receivers that you like act like that or are that just at that level. And then a run on 3rd down inexplicably, and then sacked without even a challenge on 4th down. I knew what was happening. I didn't really need to watch much after that. I still popped in when I could, but once I saw that set of 4 plays go down, all of my any ounce of hope I had left when we could have gone from from 2 scores to 1 score, like just a normal touchdown, and then Ole Miss just flew right back down the field. I was like, oh, that was it. I knew that was the end of that. So, and then just kept checking my phone to see if we had put anything up, and then just the fact there was just never a point scored. Yeah. The
It was a rough day. It
it
was a
was a
rough
rough
day.
day. I think my lack of words here, I think, is a very good expression of just what the general vibe across the alumni and fan base is right now.
I would call it jokerification at this point. I may have made that word up. I may have stolen it from the internet. You'll never know. Let's move on. Let's talk about what the immediate future looks like over the next indefinite period between now and the last week of November. Here's what the buyout situation is. These numbers are per, I believe, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. If the head football coach of the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets is fired today, which he has not been as of the time of recording at around 7 p.m. on Sunday, September 18th, he will be owed $14 million. If he is fired at an undisclosed point in December, I think the reporting was that it was December 1st, he would be owed $10 million. If he was fired after January 1st, on or after, he'd be owed $7 million. He is never going to make it to January 1st. I think the only way this ends, even if he gets through the remaining 5 hours of Sunday, they'd owe him $10 million, regardless of when they fire, if they fired him now or sometime in December, because that's just how the buyout would be negotiated down. I think you can absolutely negotiate your way out of this very constrained paper bag.
On the contract part, I wonder if the December part is just about when the conference championships are, like what day that lines up on. Because in theory, we could. I mean, technically, we still could make that game. So I wonder if that's where the demarcation point is and why it's not necessarily listed. But no, I don't think we'll need to get to December 1 to know. I guess in theory they could still be working out contract negotiations of what the buyout number is right now, and it just takes hours. And we just thought it would happen during the work day for whatever that accounts for on a Sunday. But I mean, hard to say right now.
You can't make a bad hire and then publicly hitch your wagon to that hire, and when the Titanic there has hit the iceberg and is sinking, right? I think that inevitably is what makes this look even worse, right? Because we got the dreaded vote of confidence situation over the winter, and that I think that has an effect in the consideration for all this.
Yeah, not only that, but like the contract, we were still in the front half of this contract too. Like the wagon was very much hitched at the beginning before a snap was even played, before a practice was run. So, like, it was in a lot of ways like this had to work out because there was a lot put on this. So, yeah, I mean, as you said, like that winter statement of or whatever, he backed him again. That got my head shaken. I was like, all right, maybe give us another role, but these are all Collins's guys now. So
See, that's something that, like, I don't think you would call me a Collins or Stansbury apologist. I don't think those are really smart terms to use about, mere mortals and whatnot, if we're going to get a little bit heady. But I don't think Stansbury really had any choice. So I think people writing a lot into saying, hey, this guy that I've hired and have a contract to be our football coach for the next 4 years, we're going to cut bait after giving him all this rope of saying, yeah, this triple option thing, this is going to be a huge transition. Giant global pandemic. Say what you will about all that. 2021 was the first quote unquote normal year he was going to have. And even that was supposed to be seen as a year zero. You don't cut bait or year one, whatever. I don't know this year one, -1, 0,
yeah,
-2 crap. But you're not going to cut bait on somebody after year, 2, 3, question mark, whatever you want to assign it with those funky numbers. It just doesn't make any sense, especially not when you still have to pay him 7, 8 figures of cold hard cash when you are so in debt as an athletic department. Like I don't care if somebody in December had said, you know what, I am insert rich GT alum here, insert rich GT fan here, I will give you the money. There are so many better things that we can do than to pay Paul Hewitt's, than to pay Jeff Collins's, than to pay insert old, not Paul Hewitt, who came after him? Gosh, Brian Gregory. Like we just don't have the money to be burning on people not to be employed at Georgia Tech anymore. That's money that can go to volleyball. That's money that can go to baseball. That's money that can go, heck, to football, and if that means that they get better helmet technology, or, somebody somewhere in the cross country team gets more square meals or something like that, that's way more, effective ways to spend limited resources than to, line the pockets of whoever Collins's agent is or whatever.
Do any of you remember the exact, or what the round number is of how much in debt we are right now? I'm forgetting this.
Boy, howdy do I. It's seared into my brain. It's around $270 million, Jack.
Jesus.
That is in, I believe, $2021. So probably worse now.
And it's gotten bigger. It's gotten bigger.
Bigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has absolutely gotten bigger. Because I do think we have to talk about the debt situation. I typed up a whole thing for someone yesterday. Let me see if I can scroll.
I'll ramble here for a second while you're scrolling and just be like, and for those thinking about this, like, yeah, there is the football product is one thing, but the business decision on this is just a massive decision as well. And Stansbury and Cabrera, whoever's going to make the final call on this, has to put a number on how much do we want to, like, how much value are we going to get out of kicking Collins out now, or whatever term you want to use. Like, that is a very hard call to make right now. So and I don't have a number for that either.
So here's what I got. This is from the 2021 financial report that Georgia Tech submits to the NCAA. I will offer the caveat that there are lies, damned lies, and then schools' NCAA financial reports. So keep that in mind. These are heavily manipulated to make athletics seem like impoverished situations at most institutions for, capital gain. Anyway, to get to the actual point, operating expenses in financial year or fiscal year 2021, around $86 million. I rounded all these to three significant figures. Debt payments, existing facilities and real estate debt payments is $14 million. That's about 16% of the annual expenses or budget. Operating revenues every year, per the report, $86.2 million. And then media rights revenue, which I threw in here because the person that asked me to put this together had asked for it, $25.1 million. That's about 29% of revenues. So walking this out, right, if you fire the sitting head football coach today at $14 million, and the situation with paying it out is like Gus Malzahn's situation with Auburn last year or the year before, where he had to be paid half of it within 30 days, and then the rest was doled out in equal installments for him it was 2 years, but let's be generous and say it's 4 years for Georgia Tech. Assuming all other stuff remains equal in this scenario, your 2022 operating expenses are now $93 million. Your 23 through 26 operating expenses are about $87.75 million, 87.8 if you want to stick to the rounding scheme. And you're still paying $14 million in other debt payments. The buyout cost is $7 million in 22. So your total outlay in fiscal year 22 is now $21 million in terms of debt. And then from 23 to 26, you're paying out $1.75 million, 1.8. And your total debt outlay is now $15.8 million. To give percentages, debt outlay in 22, 22.5%. Debt outlay in 23 through 26 is 17.9%, all out of the total operating expenses. Jake, you've been pointing at yourself trying to say something for the last 5 minutes as I've been talking. Please give me your take.
And this all ignores / makes irrelevant the fact that there were a couple years in very recent memory where Tech was only paying down interest or very small amounts of principal from the giant loans that they're currently in debt for. This is something that they've restructured a number of times. I don't have privy to the exact financial details, but it is worth noting that, for a while it was structured in such a way that the payments were essentially interest and small amount of principal, and then a giant $30 million like lump far out into the future. So this is something that's been affecting Tech for a long time. It's something that's been kind of a giant question mark in how it was handled in pre-Stansbury years, especially, or, years before he had control and restructure and stuff like that. It's bad. There's no other way to put it. Like, Georgia Tech is hamstrung, yes, by maybe more modest financial resources to start with than some of its peers or neighbors, but on top of that, it's like fighting with another hand behind your back with the existing debt on top of it.
I don't want to do a whole another podcast segment on the exact details of the actual debt, like what constitutes a debt. I think we've already talked about it at one point.
And the thing you're referring to is the Georgia Tech football Show Me the Money article that you wrote in spring of 21, right?
And Steven wrote one too the year before. So lest that be forgotten.
As somebody who can see the stats on our website, I'm sure you would be shocked to hear that is one of our most read articles for today. And that came out a year and a half ago. So if you want to know the state of the fan base, I think that being in the top 10 with all the, stuff that's gone on of late, I think that's pretty telling.
I need to pull up the one like hilariously damning figure from that article because it is just absolutely brutal. So I know one of you has another take, so please vamp while I find this.
I still don't have a number in terms of how much, like, where I put the value on getting rid of Collins today, if that were to happen. My thought is we have to, if there is another level to consider this, to seeing how our conference schedule plays out is something. We don't have a juggernaut again until Georgia. So, like, if we lose to Duke by 40 points, oh boy, I don't know.
3-0 Duke, that was considered to be a smoldering crater at the end of last season. So
game day is doing them a disservice to not be in Lawrence or Durham, whichever one that game is at.
It's in Lawrence. I think it's Duke at Kansas. The damning figure from the article that I wrote a couple years ago, and I'll quote myself here. However, if our favorite, usually obtuse college athletic authority is being uncharacteristically clear with his terminology, I am simply awestruck by the fact that athletics makes up a whopping 48.5% of the institute's total debt and 27.9%, of its annual debt service payments. End quote. So that's the money figure right there, pun completely intended. It's unbelievable and almost unconscionable that a modern athletic department is this far in debt. I will note, I haven't done the full analysis on the rest of the country or the rest of the ACC to know if this is normal. Maybe this is all normal or at least reasonable, and I'm overreacting, and I overreacted 2 years ago. But I look at the raw data, I get very frustrated. Jake, please alleviate my concern, if you will.
I've got nothing. This debt thing, I'm somebody who worries about, money in general, just because fastidious family and stuff like that, being an out-of-state kid, I've always thought about that. But I really don't see any positive way to spin it. The only thing that comes to mind on the radar is that some of the 2 billion Tech is trying to raise right now in its latest capital campaign, I believe some of that is earmarked for athletics. And if even some of that could go to just straight into the payoff to debt slush fund, that would be, it would help at least a little bit. But I think it's so much at this point that I don't even know where you start. It seems like I'm a hole that's just getting deeper all the time.
We also got to build a volleyball gym probably again, and something for whatever the Title IX sport that we add, whatever that will be. So,
hey, I think if they really do cap the connector, Tech has to hold Institute, not just athletics, has to hold whoever's doing that feet to the fire. Because if they're taking out O'Keefe plus I mean, those renderings seem to be missing at least a couple of other tech buildings too. I just don't know how you could, save like an O'Keefe for maybe a Theta or an Alpha Z if you're capping the highway like that. I just don't know
Right.
where that foundation would work. But maybe you get some sort of payout for that. But that's probably just a 1-for-1 type thing, not like a ha ha ha. You know, there's that $250 million. Like I don't think that's how
270.
that would go. You know what I mean, though.
So one of the things that I keep hearing, I think the way that this is being construed on the internet at large is that this being Georgia Tech's football situation, and to a certain extent its debt situation, is being construed as, is Georgia Tech actually serious about its athletic program? And I think the fact that they're this far in debt would be an immediate answer to that. But Jake, I want to kick it over to you because I think this is your department.
It's the most productive take that you could have about Georgia Tech. You can't say that we are not serious about football just because, you sell out, volleyball games. You put a ton of people in a women's basketball game on a Thursday night, or, you really pack out a baseball stadium. That's not a lack of support. Voting with your feet is something that it doesn't make you a bad fan or a bad fan base to say, hey, something's not working, or hey, like, I have better ways to spend my time. It's bad. It's not good. I don't think it's something that you want to achieve, but I don't think you can say, hey, oh yes, sleeping giant, like, that'll be the magical fix that comes back and save everything. But at the same time, you're building a bunch of phenomenal programs that really don't get their fair shake, and that's really the heart of that pull between football and to a lesser extent men's basketball and the rest of my athletics program in general. Because like it or not, 90% of people's judgment on the health or status of an athletic department is what they hear and see about college football. Another 8% of that, 5, 8, 9%, whatever, you're getting close to 100%, is going to be men's basketball. And that last 1 to 5%, depending on what school you're at, is going to be the rest of volleyball, women's basketball, baseball, softball, tennis, swimming, and diving. And that just happens to be where all of our best programs are right now. And it's an ebb and a flow. Maybe the next hire for something changes that. But at this time, it's not really fair to, almost 400 other athletes, a ton of other season ticket holders who watch a really great product and want to support those teams and the programs and the cultures they're building, because that reflects on the athletic department as a whole too. Because at the end of the day, athletics is not there, in my humble opinion, to just be football, football, football. It's there to be part of a holistic, enterprise. And the point and one of the great benefits of having college sports is, opening those doors wider to get, student athletes in the door and things like that. And that football program, say what you will, a lot of those boys are still graduating or transferring and finishing their careers elsewhere. But, getting an education. And at the end of the day, that's what the importance and the value of going to college is, bar none. And there's 400 whatever student athletes at the edge that, completely writing off, all of their commitment in one fell swoop because football's 1 and 2 is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think you said all that needs to be said there. That's why I let you run with it. I know.
You've
I know how to
uncorked like
manage a
3
podcast.
Jake rants tonight. Like, I got to start charging more or something like that.
Charging for podcast appearances. Where have I heard that one before? So, 2 final notes. Number 1, you're going to hear the name Deion Sanders a lot over the next 8 months, let's say. You will keep hearing it. Do not believe it for a second. Do not convince yourself it will happen. It will not happen. Do not do that to yourself. I'm not saying that from like a Georgia Tech is not good enough for Deion situation.
No, it's because you hate the Falcons. There you
I
go.
do hate the
I
Falcons. That is true. But someone who is telling you that Deion Sanders is a good idea for Georgia Tech, I think it's a good barometer telling that person has no idea what they're talking about. They do not understand the situation at play at Georgia Tech, and we'll talk about that in a future piece at some point. But like, it's not worth the mental effort. That's all I want to say. I've seen some absolutely galaxy brain takes about that. The original rumor is from a Jacksonville radio host. Number one, never believe a radio host when it comes to coaching searches. Number two, what could a radio host in Jacksonville possibly know about a coaching search in Atlanta for a school that is not in the SEC? Very little is my take.
If you want to do your homework, because we have a piece about we had a coaches draft, hypothetical coaches draft before the season, and just in terms of like, all right, well, what if who would be next? And there's some good names on there. I see. In the back of my head, I grew up in an Auburn household, so in the back of my head, I was like, man, this would be a weird week if we were playing UCF with an empty head coaching job and Gus Malzahn's right there across the field. I don't know if it'd be a step up actually at this point, but I mean, the thought crossed my head. I don't want Gus Malzahn personally because I've seen what it could turn into and just how it gets frustrating to watch his brand of football sometimes. Even though he made a FCS title game.
It's a higher Gus year.
That sounds like something certain people said about one Mr. Paul Johnson, but I'll leave that there.
Me included.
And I will say, I did make my fair share of higher Gus memes the last time around, but those were more memes for the sake of memes because that's who I am. But
he also owns a bunch of Waffle Houses. Just saying,
he does.
It's still too early. Also, the current guy's super into Waffle House. We saw how that worked out. But anyways, I think it's too early, right? Like the point of our fantasy draft of potential coaches was literally we're bored in the middle of summer, and this is something that's on people's minds. This wasn't us coming from a place where the from the rumble seat Illuminati or whatever.
We were not calling something. This.
Exactly.
This was not a prediction.
No Babe Ruth here.
No, it will. Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I say all this more to be like, all right, if you want to fill some time and you want to do some research and just see what the landscape is, we've got some resources out there for you. But yeah, I don't. This isn't going to be worth bringing up again until the firing actually happens. If it happens, there's no telling. Still, I mean, there's a lot of football left to play, so I'll leave it at that.
Here's my last note on this entire coaching carousel saga, whatever you want to call it. This is a tweet from Matt Brown, friend of the program, Matt Brown at Extra Points, the Extra Points newsletter.
Formerly of SB Nation.
Formerly at SB Nation and now at D1 Ticker. Quote, my take on this development referring to seeing coaches get fired in September. My take on this development is that if you are seriously considering firing a coach in September for non-scandal reasons, you should have fired that coach last season, and now you have bigger organizational questions to answer besides who is going to coach here now. End quote. I am going to leave that one lingering in the air for everyone to think about. Mr. Grant, Mr. Purdy, do you have anything else that we should discuss before we head out?
We got 2 home volleyball games this week. They will be very fun. I do not think they are sold out yet. I have not seen word that they are. But if you want to see some world-class volleyball, because Julia Bergman plays for the Brazilian national team now in some capacity.
Also, has 110,000 Instagram followers.
Yeah, we mentioned this last.
What?
It is. No, our volleyball games are the most fun. I know we keep peppering this, but because it's true and it is just so much fun. Please go,
Mr. Grant.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably be there at some point. But in terms of other Atlanta happenings, it's supposed to, as far as I know, be another pretty nice week. So if you're in Atlanta, go enjoy the city. Go walk somewhere, go to a restaurant, go bike somewhere. That's the point of these nice fall days. And for the first time in 3 weeks, you have a full home slate of maybe other stuff besides football. So go get your car washed or something like that too.
All right. I think that wraps it up for us this week. Mr. Grant, take us home.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. This is Scions of the Southland, and you can find us at our associated site, fromtherumbleseat.com. You can email us at fromtherumbleseat@gmail.com. We really do appreciate anything you might send that way. Read all the emails, and we love the suggestions, especially for content, not only on the site, but for the podcast in particular. You can comment on the site. You can also find us and interact with us at FTRS Blog. On Twitter, I am at JakeGrant98. Jack is at Jack Nicholas. And if you find Akshay, maybe you get a prize or something. He doesn't really make that all that public. Again, we want to thank Section 103, great partners to the show and the site. And for Jack and Akshay, it's been another long week, and we'll talk to you real soon. Good night. And